Here we go. Good morning. It's Tuesday. It's October 8th, 2024. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow here in Chippewa Falls. Nice to have you along for a program that we will get started in at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network and right here. It's Tuesday, so Sharita Booker will be here talking about some of our more popular social media stories. Christina Lorey will be here talking about some of the stories from our daily newsletter, including one we think you're going to like. What kind of places did you used to go to eat at? And those places are no longer there. Think of Chi-Chi's or Big Boy or things like that. Do you have a favorite restaurant chain that's no longer around? So we'll chat about that for a bit. President Biden is coming to town to Milwaukee to talk about ways that his bipartisan infrastructure law is helping remove lead pipes. And Governor Evers announces a whole bunch of new grants from President Biden's American Rescue Plan that's going to help about 36 communities improve their broadband access and expand their libraries. We're going to visit with Dan Hagan from Newswatch 12 up in Rhinelander, State Representative Jodi Emerson at 7:05, and Congressman Mark Pocan at 7:30, and Chad Holmes at 7:50. Such a busy day that we have coming up. Glad you're here for it. We'll see you in about 4 minutes.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Tuesday morning, October 8th, 2024. We are exactly 4 weeks away from Election Day, 28 days to go, and it's another beautiful morning to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network. And if you're catching us on the Civic Media app or by podcast or on Facebook or YouTube, we thank you for coming along and getting the day started as well. I got a question for you. Did you see Northern Lights last night? I did not. I went to bed super early, but I'm seeing on Facebook and on social media a few folks putting up some very impressive photos from, up here in our part of the state, actually from all over the state. Some folks saw them and took some nice pictures. Hope you got a chance to, if you were able to, if the conditions were just right in your area. We've got a very busy show here. Tuesdays, of course, bring along Sharita Booker, our social media manager. We'll check on some of the big stories that attracted a lot of attention on social media over the past week. Our community editor, Christina Lorey, will be here. She does several features for us, and the one she's going to bring up today, I think you'll be interested in. Where did you used to go to eat, and it's not there anymore, and you either miss it or you just think fondly about it? Maybe it was Chi-Chi's for Mexican food, or Big Boy, or Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor, Howard Johnson's, things like that. There's a feature on the amount of defunct restaurant chains out there. So a kind of a culinary stroll down memory lane, if you will. Also, President Biden's American Rescue Plan continues to bring new investments to Wisconsin as Governor Tony Evers announces almost 36 new grants around the state for libraries and community centers, with an emphasis on bridging the digital divide so that everyone has access to a good internet connection. We're going to visit later this hour with Dan Hagan from WJFW Newswatch 12 up in Rhinelander. In our second hour, we'll talk first to State Representative Jodi Emerson, and then at the bottom of the hour, Congressman Mark Pocan makes his regular monthly visit. And I sense he will pull no punches when we ask him about how colleagues like Congressman Derrick Van Orden and Senator Ron Johnson vote against funding FEMA to make sure they can help the victims of hurricanes past and very near future as Milton churns toward Central Florida. Along the way, of course, you are welcome to join us at 855-75-CIVIC. Again, 855-752-4842, or put a comment on Facebook or YouTube. 6 a.m. temperatures at the bus stop look like this. It's 38 degrees here in Chippewa Falls. It's 28 in Hayward. Park Falls is at 30. Wausau's at 40. Green Bay, 40 degrees as well. La Crosse, 43. Wisconsin Rapids is 36 degrees right now. Oshkosh, 47. Madison, 43. And in downtown Waukesha, it's 43 degrees, where we find the one and only Greg Bach joining us, complete with another new piece of apparel from Lakefront Brewery. How many T-shirts from Lakefront Brewery do you have? Because they're all attractive and they keep making me want to go.
I have a lot of them. I've worked there on and off for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And you acquire shirts when you're like, oh, this shirt's like falling apart, or I forgot my shirt, or
oh yeah,
it's. But I love the designs; they're great, and I'm actually wearing this for a reason. We got drag bingo at Lakefront Brewery tonight, so 7:00 we're gonna have some fun with Esther Flones, who's been a guest on Matt and Air on Air. But I was actually at the gas station this morning, and a guy just looked at me and goes, I love your beer. I'm like, thank you. Thank you very much. I made it all myself.
Yes, exactly. Take the credit. There's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that. Yes. We mentioned yesterday as well. I mean, if you're looking for apparel, certainly Civic Media has merch. Up North News has merch. So when you're starting to think, and maybe you're not yet, but you will soon, starting to think about, holiday gifts and things, maybe somebody is a fan of one of these entities and you want to get them a little something. So nothing wrong with that. What else have we got here? We're going to mention that President Biden is coming to Milwaukee today to talk lead pipes. We've got make it sound like he's going to beat somebody with a lead pipe. No, take the lead pipes out. Yeah, don't be bringing the water. Although I'd like to see that. I'd like to see Joe Biden wielding a lead pipe in a menacing way. I think it would be funny. Maybe.
Okay.
I'm coming off watching Dana Carvey do the impression of him. I watched Saturday Night Live last night, so I'm actually kind of combining the two characters here. But I could see Dana Carvey doing that. Oh, you haven't watched this weekend's one yet, have you? That's right.
Haven't,
so,
no,
much like you said, it's going to be all the guest stars, I'm sure, until the election. Because again, you had Maya Rudolph and Jim Gaffigan in there. And I'm missing
Andy Samberg as Doug.
Andy Samberg,
Doug,
that's it. Yep.
the first Doug.
Yes. Yep.
He's the second gentleman, but he's the first Doug.
That's it. That's exactly right. So yeah, I got to watch it with Nate Bargatze. Nate Bargatze.
Bargatze.
Okay. I always used to say Nate Bargatze, and then I realized he probably didn't want his name to rhyme with Nazi. So get it right, Pat. It's Nate Bargatze, and he's really good in those. Did I say sketches or skits where you corrected me? I said skits.
They're called sketches.
They're called
Show
sketches.
Respect.
I know. You're here to teach me the ways. You are my comedy Sherpa, and I appreciate that very,
and
very
anyone
much.
who tries to doubt me, you will heck fire will rain down.
There will be the aforementioned lead pipe. Exactly. You can get our daily newsletter over at UpNorthNewsWI.com. Just click subscribe up in the top banner. In there today, a story about how Vice President Kamala Harris says the U.S. Senate needs to blow up its filibuster when it comes to protecting women's health care rights. A tattoo artist in West Allis provides a service to breast cancer survivors to help them feel whole again. Look for those stories and more in the newsletter. Tomorrow here on this program, we'll have Up North News reporter Elizabeth Montemurro, and we will be talking about a recent visit by U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo and what she had to say about Donald Trump's promise that if elected, he will explode the amount of tariffs out there, and which will explode the prices that we all have to pay at the store. In our homeroom segment tomorrow, you've heard of PTAs, you've maybe heard of PTOs. They're not necessarily the same thing when it comes to supporting our schools, and so we'll talk about the difference and how both types of organizations wouldn't have to work so hard if our state legislature would do their job of supporting public schools the way that they should be. And Melissa Baldoff will be along tomorrow with our climate check segment. We'll look at the ways, we'll fact check the ways that former President Trump continues to whine about an EV mandate, making it sound like everybody has to turn in their gasoline-powered car, next week. And it's nothing even remotely close to that. So we'll have all that in our climate check as well. All right. Now, we mentioned that President Biden will be in Milwaukee to talk about removing lead water lines from the city. You should be able to hear the president make some remarks around the time that Todd Alba's show is on. We're thinking maybe 12:30 or so, but Todd is on from noon to 2, so be listening there to get the latest on President Biden's visit. He'll be talking about how it's the bipartisan infrastructure law of his that made that possible. Prior to that, there was the American Rescue Plan, and there's been a new development on that here in Wisconsin. Yesterday, Governor Tony Evers announced 35 grants to different local and tribal communities for community centers and libraries. It's a $115 million investment that's going to create construction jobs and give people in these communities better connections to the world through broadband internet. Part of the point of the American Rescue Plan was to improve connectivity, a lesson we learned during the pandemic when so much of our work and school life had to move home. And you had all kinds of families and workers who had to sit in places like McDonald's parking lots to get a Wi-Fi signal to get anything done. So, in Ashland, for example, $3.5 million for a library expansion, a computer lab, La Crosse, $3 million to upgrade that library's broadband infrastructure. In Elkhorn, $2 million to add classrooms and 2 telemedicine rooms so that folks can talk to a healthcare professional so that a long car trip might not be necessary. because oftentimes when a long car ride is necessary, people will skip the care that they need. And that's where telemedicine services really came to the forefront during the pandemic. The Lake Superior Chippewa, the Mole Lake Chippewa are both receiving grants, along with towns ranging from Wapaka to Watoma, Shawano to Stanley, New London to New Glarus, and many more. So that's the latest from the American Rescue Plan. Let's see. I wanted to note that while Vice President Kamala Harris was on 60 Minutes last night for a special edition, Donald Trump was not. And I want to play a little bit from Scott Pelley about the excuses that Donald Trump offered for first agreeing and then pulling out of appearing on 60 Minutes, an appearance that every presidential candidate has made dating back to 1968. But Donald Trump said he couldn't make it, didn't want to do it. And here's what Scott Pelley had to say about that.
Then, a week ago, Trump backed out. The campaign offered shifting explanations. First, it complained that we would fact-check the interview. We fact-check every story.
Yeah.
Later, Trump said he needed an apology for his interview in 2020. Trump claims correspondent Leslie Stahl said in that interview that Hunter Biden's controversial laptop came from Russia. She never said that. Trump has said his opponent doesn't do interviews because she can't handle them. He had previously declined another debate with Harris, so tonight may have been the largest audience for the candidates between now and Election Day.
Greg, there's just no other. The only other thing that would have made that soundbite perfect is if the well-established, vaunted CBS News team had put chicken sounds clucking at the end of all that, because there's no other way to describe what Trump did.
I just want to ask you this. I want to ask those listening right now who support Trump. What does it say about your candidate that he is so terrified of being fact-checked and his running mate,
right?
Why is it a fact check is a non-starter, and they're like, nope, you're going to fact check me? Well, then you're lying.
Yeah. Well,
constantly.
Because yes, they keep talking about how these facts have a liberal bias to them.
Okay, sure,
no,
all right.
No, facts are what they are,
and don't care about your feelings.
Oh, I like that. Yes, let's bring that line back. All right, Sharita Booker is coming up next to tell us about some of the more popular posts on Up North News social media platforms. This is Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, this isn't actually just because Sherry and I went to go see Air Supply last week. There's a story behind this as part of our history lesson that we do every day. On this day in 1983, this song, Making Love Out of Nothing at All by Air Supply, was the number 2 song, and the number 1 song was Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart, both written and produced by the great Jimmy Steinman, making him the first solo writer and producer to hold the top 2 spots at the same time. And if you don't know Jimmy Steinman, think of symphonic rock. Meatloaf's I'd Do Anything for Love, Celine Dion's It's All Coming Back to Me Now, Barry Manilow's Read 'Em and Weep, and more. And so he had the 1 and 2 spots, songs that he wrote back on this day in 1983. And we're joined now by Sharita Booker, social media manager here at Up North News. Sharita, how are you?
Good, Pat. How are you?
Good. Let's see. First topic today of our more popular social media posts. They may be popular. It doesn't mean the Up North News folks are necessarily well versed in them. I would have zero versing in the World Dairy Expo had I not married a cute dairy farm girl from Manitowoc County. Sharita, I don't think you've had a lot of exposure to the World Dairy Expo.
I have not, unfortunately.
Okay.
Good time.
But we both are aware that this is a very big show, very big deal for showing off not just Wisconsin's global leadership in dairy, but attracting a whole lot of visitors to come to Dane County for the big event. And one of our posts got a lot of traffic. Tell us more about it.
Yep. So the World Dairy Expo was held last week. And if you don't know what it is, every October, dairy farmers, industry experts, and consumers from more than 100 countries meet in Madison for 5 days of shows, seminars, and shopping. So here are a few fun facts. The Expo's Dairy Cattle Show is the largest in the world, and it's the only Wisconsin event included in the trade show's top 200, and it's also been hosted in Dane County since the event began in 1967. That post had almost 1,000 likes on our Facebook, and Amy Jean replied, "I've shown there many times, been a spectator as well. My running record of years attending in a row is 33 years. I haven't been able to attend the last 2 years, but my goal is to return in 2025. And Amy Voss said, "And it had the best grilled cheese sandwiches." I'm sure they have a lot of good food there.
Oh, yeah, I understand the grilled cheese sandwiches are kind of like to them what cream puffs are to the Wisconsin State Fair. So it is on my bucket list of being able to visit at some point here. And clearly a lot of people do. Last year the event brought in some $32 million to the Dane County economy. More than 900 companies from around the world are exhibitors for the 70,000 attendees or so that come in. So yes, just a huge piece of the rural economy, but also one that's good for the local economy in Wisconsin's capital. Then there's another business that started from humble beginnings before having its big economic impact in Wisconsin. And it all started, 105 years ago with a simple little produce stand. Tell us more about that.
Yep. So if you don't know about these little fun facts, Wisconsin native John Woodman started the company, or the little grocery store Woodman's, in 1919, and now it's become a $2 billion company, and it has locations in Wisconsin and Illinois. And here are some cool facts about it. Its pizza section alone can fill a small apartment. When built, Woodman's Kenosha store was the largest grocery store in America, and the grocery chain carries 100,000 items compared to a national average of 30,000 items. And that post had more than 1,000 likes on our Facebook. Tracy said, "I need a good 2 to 3 hours to wander through when I go. You get sent back in time in the cereal and candy aisles." And Pam said, my childhood neighborhood grocer. It was very close to our grade school too. We used to buy nickel and candy bars from Mr. Woodman.
And look again at how far back that goes. 1919, when John Woodman's produce stand was on the corner of Milton and Sherman in Janesville. And all that it has become then. And you can tell from some of the comments, for some folks, it's actually a little overwhelming. They'd actually like a little less in terms of selection, but clearly it's struck a chord with folks, maybe for the quirky commercials, if for nothing else, but certainly a lot of variety and a lot of products to choose from in something that is clearly a Wisconsin original. You know what else is a Wisconsin original? That would be, of course, our Green Bay Packers and the place where they play. which, I mean, you have to be a real old timer. But if you say the Packers play at City Stadium, some folks will know exactly what you're talking about before it got the name that we know it as today.
Yep. So now we know it as Lambeau Field, but it turned 67 years old last week. And in 1957, it had less than half the capacity as it does today, which was just over 32,000. It was the first stadium built exclusively for football, and ticket prices were dramatically different then, ranging from $2.25 to $4.75, which is crazy to think about. Karen replied, "That must have been wonderful when regular people could afford to go together to games as families." And Mike said, "My favorite version of Lambeau. Today it's become a shopping mall." Times have changed.
I mean, yes, it's true. I mean, but it's a gorgeous shopping mall, and it is part of, everything is revenue focused. I mean, the Packer Pro Shop there is second to none. It is a full blown experience, and yeah, the ticket prices reflect that. I think back of going to baseball games at County Stadium or at Metropolitan Stadium for Twins games, and yeah, you'd pay $4 to $7 for a ticket. And for it, you got splinters in your butt from the wooden bleachers, down the left field line. It's just a different experience today, and most folks wouldn't trade that. That it's just a gorgeous place to watch a wonderful football team. And again, Green Bay, smallest market in the NFL. So why wouldn't you want something that has that kind of economic impact? Although now that I think about it, Sharita, it's also got the training camp setup that people like, because again, you can just walk right up there. You see the Packer players riding the kids' bikes. So it's not completely inaccessible to the general public,
Yeah, true.
It's still a good, it's a good city to have a team like this. And yeah, it all started from those, again, like the John Woodman produce stand. It started from humble beginnings on one little street corner in Green Bay and grew from there. Anyway, Sharita compiles all these great posts that get all this wonderful traffic and comments from people who like things, don't like things. So why don't you check it out as well? Look for our social media posts on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all the usual places. Sharita, thanks for putting those all together. Thanks for filling us in on what was big this past week, and have a wonderful day.
You too, Pat.
And our thanks to Pat Kreitler for recording that apparently in a bathroom someplace. Next time I'll maybe bring a radio quality microphone with me when I'm doing these things on the road. Anyway, when we come back, Christina Lorey and places you used to go to eat, but they're long gone. Down memory lane next. You're Up North. Welcome back. It's time for the Uplift, always a welcome segment when we take a break from the usual headlines of the day, especially a lot of politics here with just about, with exactly 4 weeks to go until Election Day. Christina Lorey, our community editor, puts together our newsletter. Sign up for it at UpNorthNewsWI.com. Lots of great stories in there. Christina, how are you?
I'm good. Hopefully we'll have a whole bunch of uplifting political headlines to bring you shortly. But in the meantime, I'm here to cover with some food news.
Right. We're girding for now, just in case. So we've got some food stories to pass along, and one sports season that isn't getting going yet, but we want to get you a little excited for it anyway. So let's bookend it with food, and let's start with the cranberry harvest. Now, last week, when Sharita was here visiting, we were talking about the Warren's Cranberry Fest and how crazy popular it is. And yeah, granted, it doesn't have a ton to do with cranberries by the time you get all the people coming in because they love a good craft show and everything else. But it all started with that humbleberry, and you have the same thing up in, I think it's Stone Lake. And then, of course, you got the food itself. I mean, Wisconsin is just king of the cranberries.
Yes, I was going to say, even though our biggest fest has come and gone, now is really peak cranberry harvest season. And it's so interesting because you would think, or at least I did, because of our climate and how hot it can get and how freezing cold it can get, that a crop like a cranberry, which seems pretty fragile, wouldn't fare well. But actually the opposite is true, because the vines that they grow on are very, very hardy. They can withstand giant temperature swings, and that's what makes Wisconsin such a great state for them. What's interesting too is that a lot of people, like when you think cranberry, you kind of think the Ocean Spray commercial where they're all just floating in the giant pool of water.
Right.
But they actually grow in marshes, and when it's time for the harvest, only then do they flood those marshes with water, and then all the berries release from their vines and float to the top. So that's only the very end of the process. If you checked in on them any other time of year, it would not look like that.
No, nope. It's just something. It's so unique when you don't know that, and then it gets explained to you, and now you never pass by. Once you learn that, you never pass by a bog and go, oh, why isn't there water in there? Well, there will be when the time is right.
Yes. Just a few other fun facts that I learned about Wisconsin cranberries is that, first of all, if you need any more incentive to eat them, they're packed with vitamin C, which is really good for your skin, muscles, and bones. And they also have a high level of manganese, which it's a lot better to get it through food than through a supplement. It boosts your metabolism. And also they have a lot of antioxidants, which are great in helping prevent sickness, especially as flu season comes in. And then what's interesting is we're inching closer, it's hard to believe, to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And 90% of all Wisconsin cranberries will be consumed that week alone.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that many on just that particular week. And I know I'm going way back here, but it was during my early years as a reporter that the stories about, we would do cranberry stories this time of year, but it was usually the thrust of the story was who harvested more cranberries. Was it Wisconsin or Massachusetts? There was this back and forth as to, who was the real cranberry state.
Yes, I was going to say we really have run away with the title. We produce more than half of the world's supply of cranberries and more than 2/3 America's supply of cranberries. So nobody's coming close to us.
The behemoth of the berry, as it were.
And it makes sense, Pat, because we are, like, you associate red with Wisconsin a lot, obviously, University of Wisconsin. So, it's nice we keep our berries on theme too.
There you go. There's a nice connection there. We can't leave this all harmonious, however. We have to start people thinking about that debate or fight they're going to have next month. So I'm going to start it with you for your cranberries at Thanksgiving. You like the dressing, or do you like the Slurpee can cranberries?
Okay, I'm very fickle when it comes to cranberries. I like the fresh ones. My grandma, I'll fight anyone that says that she does not have the best recipe. It just fresh cranberries and a whole bunch of sugar and cooked for an extremely long time. Nothing tops it.
All right.
What about you?
Personally, a can guy myself, but that's what I grew up with. You've got to have like the little metal can indentations in the cranberry log after it slurps out of there onto your plate. And you can always tell there's some people that can't wait to slice off a little bit for their plate, and other people just kind of recoil. It's not the thing for some other people. So we've got you thinking now, how do you want your cranberries when Thanksgiving comes? And yeah, it's actually going to be here before you know it.
Well, I don't want to mean that is also delicious. I'm just
Mhm.
saying that mine is more delicious.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah,
They're
sure,
both
that's
good.
fair. Well, there, it's a win. It's a win-win that way. As we move through this month and move toward Thanksgiving and beyond, what we're moving into as well is basketball season. The NBA will be starting things before too terribly long, and that just reminds us of the many sports crushes we've had over the years with. There was Bart Starr and Favre and Rodgers, and then there was, Paul Molitor, Robin Yount. When you're talking about the Bucks, we get to talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo for the next several months again.
Yes. Training camp restarted, and this is year 12 already for Giannis.
That's crazy.
Just crazy, right? It doesn't seem like that long ago. But if you want to know just how long ago it was, Google Giannis draft day pick, and you'll see how little he is. And it's not your eyes deceiving you. When he was drafted as a then unknown 18-year-old from Greece, he was 6'8", and now he's 6'11". So he really was a little kid. He grew into those massive hands that they drafted him for. And what's interesting is that he's not only grown, obviously, physically, but his entire mentality. He did a press conference when training camp kicked off last week, and he was talking about his growth mindset. He doesn't believe anything is a failure. The reporters kept harking on him, like, what happened last season? You were supposed to be great. You guys.
What happened in the Olympics? Right.
Yes, you're supposed to win. And he just had the perfect retort. He said that Michael Jordan played for 15 years and won 6 championships, were the other 9 seasons a failure. And I think that shuts down any question right there.
Yeah.
Because I want to meet the person who says yes to that.
No, they won't be any fun to talk to at all. I mean, I am vaguely aware of how many years it's been, because I do recall sometime shortly after he was drafted, there was like this quintessential Sports Illustrated magazine article about him. And that was my first exposure to him, where the writer was like, yeah, this guy is this good. He's going to be this good. I remember the same thing being said about, say, LeBron James, back in the day, or Kevin Garnett or Kobe Bryant, all for basketball, of course. And they too became, legends later on. People see these things, and people clearly saw it in Giannis, but then the rest of us just kind of go on with our lives, and suddenly he's an overnight sensation. But it actually wasn't that overnight after all.
Yes, I'm keenly aware of how old he is, because we are the exact same age. He's actually 5 months younger than me, and constantly makes me feel very inadequate. Just seeing all he's accomplished by the time he's 30.
Wait a minute.
Turn 30 this December.
Let's address this crisis here. Well, who were we talking about last week? That was kind of like your birthday buddy. And
Shohei
Ohtani. Yeah.
Yes.
You're comparing yourself to these world-class athletes. And I know you still do, your Girls on the Run and things like that, but nobody's expecting, that you have to go win an Olympic gold medal or you failed here. It's just, you've got a couple of kids in your class who are just a little bit faster, shall we say.
Yes. Maybe they're peaking early. That's a great way to phrase it.
Yes. I mean,
we'll check back in at 60.
Yes. Trust me, from somebody at 60, make it 50. Because after that, the rocking chair can't be far behind. All right, let's wrap things up here with a little bit of fun with food. And you have a list or what about places where we used to love to go to eat, or maybe we didn't, and that's why they're not around, that aren't around anymore.
Yes. How about we call this segment Forgotten Wisconsin?
Okay.
Places that are no longer here anymore.
Okay.
We can take a little trip down memory lane. Chains that used to be big especially here in Wisconsin, and now they're closed. Buca de Beppo. I hear you were a fan.
Love
that Italian
Buca.
restaurant chain. I also loved it too. That was actually my freshman year homecoming fancy dinner location. That's where we went to. They just had giant portions, I remember, and they also had really good cannoli. What do you remember?
Oh my gosh, family style food, so much food, and just so delicious. And there were a lot of them around the Twin Cities, for example. And then when was the bankruptcy? August 1st, they abruptly closed 13 restaurants, and of course 4 years later they were blaming COVID, and it's a darn shame. I would love to see somebody bring that back. It was just such a wonderful place to go with the family or a lot of friends.
It was. They always had cute decor too. Felt very old school.
Oh, old school, but I mean, just way over the top. And I mean, that was kind of some of the fun of it. Do you have another example or two?
I do. Arthur Treacher's, Hot and Now, Chi-Chi's, and Holy Moly. Now, those are four I have actually never been to. I have heard of Chi-Chi's, and there's actually an interesting Wisconsin connection there because it was founded by
there is Max McGee.
Yes, the former Packer.
Know how I know that?
No, tell me.
I was part of the first crew when Chi-Chi's opened its location in Eau Claire back in 1985.
No way, that's super cool, Pat.
Yeah, it was located on near Upper Campus, near Sacred Heart Hospital, near Towers. I was living in Towers at the time, and saw that it was being built, toddled over, filled out an application, and was, a host, server, had to sing lots of birthday songs, with the sombrero and everything. But the best part about it for that particular location, with Sherry, because we met in college, and we hardly had two nickels to rub together. But for Chi-Chi's for happy hour, they had like this all-you-can-eat nacho bar. So you'd go get a basket of chips, and you could put rice in it, or beans, or cheese, or salsa, and all these other things. And I think maybe that's why they're not in business anymore, because too many poor college students would just fill up on chips and salsa and rice and beans and things.
Yes, but if anybody listening to this still wants a taste of Chi-Chi's, before they filed for bankruptcy in 2007, Hormel bought the rights to the Chi-Chi's brand. So you can still find their tortillas and salsas and sauces in the grocery store, actually.
Okay. I'm looking at another list of places that, are no longer around in terms of restaurant chains. And also just a block away on Claremont Avenue in Eau Claire was Howard Johnson's, the hotel and the restaurant. And we used to go there for their famous ice cream cake roll. And I do miss that. There's others that people just didn't go to. They weren't that popular in places. Burger Chef. There used to be a lot of burger chefs, but I was not one that went to a lot of them. There was Farrell's Ice Cream Parlor, really fancy ice cream sundaes. And again, they'd sing to you and everything else. And that didn't make it as well. Steak and Ale was never one that, again, you had some Wisconsin locations, but I didn't go to a ton of them. Are there any of these that you went to and you miss?
Yes. So the one on this list, I actually didn't know that there was one in Wisconsin in the Milwaukee area, Ed DeBevick's. It was that old 50s diner where the servers would get up and dance on the table.
Oh,
It started in Chicago, and we would go all the time as kids. It was so much fun. And actually, so it closed right at the beginning of COVID. And that's one that obviously, like, they were not using the pandemic as an excuse, because their entire brand is like in your face interactions. Yes. So, they couldn't do that anymore. But last summer they brought it back. So it's in a new location in downtown Chicago. But if you are ever there, highly recommend. They actually have great food and great entertainment.
Yes, and I'm glad to hear that. I'd like to go. I always enjoy anybody that does retro, but you can't just do retro for the sake of retro. You got to do it right. And hopefully we won't have to re-add them to the list of food franchises to whom we've bid farewell. Christina Lorey, our community editor at Up North News, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Coming up after this, of course, is today's history lesson. This is Up North News Radio from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, there's Dan. Good morning.
Good morning, Pat. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Let me get another book or two.
Yep. Well, and if you can hear me while you're searching that, how do you want to be supered down at the bottom there? WJFW TV or?
Yeah, WJFW TV works great.
Oh, okay. And it's Newswatch 12, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Very good. Let you finish getting elevated.
Yeah, I got about 12 books in front of me.
Yep. I've done that dance. I finally went and bought a stand that comes in handy for remotes. Of course, I didn't bring it last week, so Greg, thankfully, there has a box in the Waukesha studio. I don't know if Greg can hear us. He's manning the commercial break right now. Okay, there we go. Everybody looks good. Sounds good. Let me stick you back in the waiting room for a touch. We are out of this break in just under 60 seconds.
Okay.
Welcome to today's history lesson and some musical memories for this October 8th. And we are joined for the first time by Dan Hagan out at WJFW TV Newswatch 12 in Rhinelander. Dan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. It's great to be up with you guys from Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Kind of a chilly day out there. We had the frost kill most of the plants yesterday, and I think a second frost this morning.
No doubt about that. And we get to talk to somebody who's even, truly up north. I'm about 2 miles north of Highway 29, which is the line, but Dan is actually
the line,
there.
Though, Pat, because I would say the line is 64. 64 is the line. Merrill, Antigo is right on the border. You go north is up north.
64 is a very credible alternative to it. It's not the right answer, but it's a very credible alternative. In the history lesson today, Robert Cool, Bell of Cool and the Gang, turns 74 years old today. Kind of a sad history note, but worth noting, the Great Peshtigo Fire happened this day in 1871. Killed up to 2,000 people. They never really did get a final count, and it didn't get a lot of attention because of the Great Chicago Fire and the Great Michigan Fire, all breaking out on that same day. On this day in 1982, Culture Club released their debut album, Kissing to Be Clever. Singles included Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, I'll Tumble For You, and this. And of course, Time Clock of the Heart, Boy George and Company unleashed a wave of UK acts, custom fitted for MTV, groups like Duran Duran and Eurythmics. So this is where, again, during our musical segments, we bring on guests and we find out just how old I am. Dan, did MTV actually play music videos whenever you were watching it as a youth?
See, the problem is I did not have cable as a youth, so I did not have MTV. And when I finally kind of saw it, no more music videos.
That's okay. TLC used to be called the Learning Channel. There used to be classes on there.
And now it's Honey Boo Boo and everything else, right?
Yeah. There's a whole slew of those. By the way, shots fired here on the radio by Tony up in Ashland, who's referring to both me and Dan as Southerners, because for him up north is Highway 2, which I guess typically could make him up north or could make him a Canuck. One way or the other. So anyway, back to today's history lesson here. Birthdays, John Cummings was born this day in 1948, a founding member of the Ramones. He became Johnny Ramone. And then C.J. Ramone, born Christopher Ward, is 59 years old today. The number one song this day in 1988 was by Def Leppard.
This song holds so much for me.
Oh, really? Tell us more about the hairband ballads.
It was, well, first of all, watch your mouth. Second of all, this was one of the first tapes that I bought with my own money. Mm-hmm. I love this album. This album is perfect.
Which album was this off of?
Hysteria.
Oh, it was off Hysteria. Okay.
Produced by Mutt Lange, who would go on to become both Shania Twain's husband and ex-husband. In a story that, if you don't know it, look it up. Dan, first bit of music you bought with your own money.
Okay, so I have an interesting kind of musical background. I know nothing about Def Leppard.
That's okay.
My parents were in graduate school in the 80s, so they had no time for music. So I go 60s, 70s, skip the 80s, up to the 90s.
Oh.
And my dad bought me a CD of the Monkees. Felt like that was a good, like, kid music, you know? Hey, we're the Monkees.
Yep.
My first concert.
It works, yeah. I like it a lot.
Very nice. Okay, good deal. A lot of birthdays today here. Let's start with Bruno Mars. He is 39 years old today. Chevy Chase turns 81 years old today. Sigourney Weaver is 75. Matt Damon is 54. Sorry, we've run out of time to talk to him today. Nick Cannon is 44. And here's one that'll make the younger folks in our audience feel older. Dan, did you watch 2.5 Men?
Yes.
Okay. Jake, Angus T. Jones.
Yeah.
Jake is 31 years old today.
Wow.
How you feeling about that?
He's older than me. I know you guys are probably cringing inside with that knowledge, but I know Angus, didn't he kind of hated 2.5 Men toward the end, I think.
I think everybody near Charlie Sheen hated it at some point during the show's run. On this day in 1956, the New York Yankees' Don Larson pitched the only perfect game in a World Series. And on this day in 1982, Cats opened on Broadway and would run for nearly 18 years before closing on September 10th, 2000. Today is National Salmon Day. It's World Octopus Day. It is National Pierogi Day, for those of you who like a good Polish dumpling. It is International Newspaper Carrier Day. It's not even fair to ask if you were a newspaper carrier because there are no paper boys anymore.
What's a newspaper?
Thank you very much. All right, appreciate that. And today is National Fluffernutter Day, which I sure was something you couldn't talk about on the radio, but it turns out there are people that like a sandwich called a fluffernutter, which is peanut butter and marshmallow fluff. Never heard of it. Anything, Dan?
I've heard of it, and it's disgusting.
It is
so gross.
I know. So gross. Jeepers. All right. Well, Dan, anything we should be watching for either on Newswatch 12 or in the Rhinelander area that you're working on or doing?
I mean, there are always a bunch of stories that we're working on. We try to stay as local as possible. There's a lot of referendums.
There are.
Strange. Quirk puts it in a nice context. It's really not nice.
Yeah. No, it's
all on these local taxpayers.
It really does.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for that, follow Dan Hagan over at Newswatch 12. Go to WJFW.com to learn more. Dan, great to visit with you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Pat. Happy to be on. You guys are a riot.
All right. Thank you. Congressman Mark Pocan and State Representative Jodi Emerson are among our guests in the second hour of Up North News Radio. From Civic Media, I'm Pat Kreitlow. All right, we are clear. There we go. Yep, 5850 is our out, and we nailed it. And thanks, Dan. That was fun. You wanna do it again next Tuesday?
Sign me up. I'll see you next Tuesday.
All right, you got it. Talk to you later.
All righty.
All right, see you.
Got to figure out how to get out of here.
Just hit the. There you go.
I got it.
Good morning. Good morning. It's grand to be on hand. Good morning. Good morning to you. I don't sing to just anybody.
That does make me happier. Thank you, Pat.
Oh God, are you at home or in Madison?
No, I'm at home.
You're at home.
God,
Okay.
I'm not allowed to.
What?
I'm not allowed to.
What does it take for that, Julian, to get you a nice, easy internet connection?
I would need a better computer to be able to use it. So
Okay.
I'll use my phone. Just deal with it. I'm on camera this time.
I know. Your audio is just a
So-
little kind of muffled, is all. So.
Oh, okay. I can try. Wait, can you hear me now? Hold on.
I can hear you now. Why do you sound better? What'd you do? What did you do? And now where did you go?
Ta-da!
Aha! There.
Is that better?
The power of AirPods.
Yep.
Or what?
Okay.
Is that what you got?
Well, no, they're cheap. So that's why they sound like shit, probably. So
Okay. All right. Don't use that word on the radio, and we'll. Okay. I know rules. I'm gonna stick you back in the waiting room so you can make noise until the weather report's done. See you soon.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
And good morning. Welcome back to Up North News Radio, unabashedly Wisconsin. Brought to you by Courier Newsroom and carried by our friends on the Civic Media Radio Network. 7:06 on this Tuesday morning, October 8th. 4 weeks to go. 28 days until Election Day. And we're talking to a couple of folks here that you'll want to hear. State Representative Jodi Emerson in a matter of minutes. And then Congressman Mark Pocan with his regular monthly stop by to tell us what's happening in D.C. Let's check the mailbag first before we talk to meteorologist Brittany Merlot. On our topic of cranberries, last hour, Lynn in Oconomowoc sent in a text saying that even though I spent summers on Lake Sherwood as a teenager in cranberry country, I did not know that they weren't grown in flooded fields, that the fields are actually flooded later on. Let's see. Alicia tells us from Northeast Wisconsin, I am a canned cranberry person because it's also what I grew up with. My grandma's turkey was a touch dry. Meanwhile, Luke Mathers, who we'll talk to on Thursday, says, I'm team homemade cranberry sauce. I can share my recipe, which has to start with 3 cups of sugar for every, tablespoon of cranberries. I don't know. Clearly, I don't cook this stuff. And Alicia asked about whether the Peshtigo fire happened at the same time as the Great Chicago Fire. And yes, and that's what was part of the holdup of delivering aid to that region. If you'd like to chime in on any of these topics and more, you can call us or text us 855-75-CIVIC or put a comment or question in the comment section at Facebook and YouTube. Let's bring in meteorologist Brittany Merlot now, where once again we've got temperatures in the 30s, 40s, even some upper 20s out there, but continued dry, sunny, pleasant. Leaves are changing nicely. Brittany, apart from the fire danger, I can't quibble with this, especially when you know what's happening down south.
Oh, I agree with you. We've got nothing really going on compared to that hurricane that is just impressive. It exploded to one of the 5th strongest ever to be in the Atlantic Basin. I think it weakened overnight and then it re-intensified back to 155 mile per hour sustained winds. But as it lifts north, hopefully it'll hit some shear, start to really weaken. But my biggest concern with this hurricane is that surge. I mean, it's got a lot of power. I don't see how that is really going to ease, even if itself it weakens. So about a 10 to 15 foot surge expected into the Tampa Bay area. I've got friends out there that have left. I'm so thankful for that. I know a lot of people are waiting for flights to get out of there. Some heavy rain and storms are going to be starting into Florida within just a few hours. So some of those heavy bands moving in, but here for us, not much. We've got a frosty, crisp, cool morning. Temperatures in the upper 20s into Hayward, Tomahawk, Merrill, and then low 50s further south and close to the lake. We had some northern lights last night. If you got to see any of those, it was beautiful. Today's going to be gorgeous, beautiful sunshine, no rain in the forecast all week long. Highs today in the mid to upper 60s. We're going to hold the mid 60s to low 70s for tomorrow and a little bump on Friday for a nice warm up ahead.
Very nice. And from Rob, good morning from Tigerton. Clear skies and 38 degrees. I took it easy with no mowings. I took pictures. The colors are starting to change, and Shawano County's best should be this weekend. On a down note, he says his niece Jenny and her family had their home flooded and destroyed by Helene in Port Richey, Florida, and they are also in the path of Hurricane Milton. Just underscoring what you said there, Brittany. And he concludes by saying prayers to the people in Florida, but he also did note having an amazing Northern Lights show last night. There's no other way to put it. If you've got any friends or family down there and you think for even a little bit they're going to say, oh, I think we can ride this out, call them up and, pull them by the hair through the phone and say, Get out. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can talk them into that, please do. It's not worth it. I know a lot of them think we've been through this, but not this.
No,
one.
nothing like this. Mm-hmm. Nothing like this. This is going to be a bad one. So our prayers are with those folks. Brittany, thank you so much for the forecast. Have a great day. Appreciate it very much. All right, let's join now in our continuing series of talking to folks who are making a difference in their community by running for elected office. And in a time where things are always so negative, especially the commercials, it's nice to have somebody whose commercials are a lot more like watching Cheers. But instead of hi Norm, it's hi Jodi, hi Jodi, hi Jodi, hi. Jodi Emerson is here, and you would think that maybe some folks around town know her because they do. Jodi Emerson, good morning.
Good morning, Pat. How you doing today?
I'm good. How or who came up with the idea that basically everybody knows your name?
This was our consultant team that came up with it. So the funny thing about that commercial filming, so we had several different locations, and while we were at the grocery store, there was actually 2 other people who, while we were filming, were like, "Hey, Jodi." And the creative team was just laughing. They're like, "I know we nailed this thing." And we actually incorporated one of those people into the commercial because their "Hey Jodi" was so great. So
I don't doubt it. And look, having both have had public roles in Eau Claire, and other people having public roles everywhere know this. Nobody yells "Hi Jodi" or "Hi Pat" if they don't like what you're doing. You know, they just kind of scowl or walk on past. And I'm not saying that every "Hi Jodi" is necessarily, you know, a scientific poll, but it's not a bad sign that you can credibly campaign on folks know you, because in a lot of other districts, people do not know who their legislator is. But that, you know, you've been a bit of a forward-facing person for some time, even before you were in the assembly, right?
yeah, it's. I mean, both my husband and I are well known in the Eau Claire area, Eau Claire Altoona area, and I don't think that there's a place that we can go without people wanting to pull us aside and talk about something. So the piece of it right now with this district is it goes all the way to the Eau Claire Clark County border, and then there's some up into Chippewa County. So what we're really focusing on right now is making sure that people in the new part of the district know me and get to know me so that they can trust me as much as the people in Altoona and Eau Claire do.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, and I can only pick on you this way because we're friends, but it shows your age that you referred to it as Eau Claire Altoona, because remember when we were growing up, it's like, oh, people in Altoona, they won't like that. You know, Altoona's right there. That's like the big next door neighbor. But Lake Hallie has grown by leaps and bounds. And of course, I'm here in Chippewa. And they're like, what do we, chopped liver up here? So the fact that, you know, you specifically make reference to Altoona, I think is kind of funny, because it was during a certain time frame when we were growing up that way. But folks do know you. But yeah, the lines did change. In fact, we're going to have on tomorrow Jodi Habush-Sinekin, or not tomorrow, Thursday, excuse me. And she's running against incumbent Republican Senator Dewey Strobel, who is going through the case of a district that was very Republican being redrawn and now isn't nearly as Republican. And so, you know, he doesn't have the same kind of campaign that he used to. Similarly, you'd be the first to acknowledge when you had just the city of Eau Claire, you know, that was a different district than having, you know, the rural parts now. And I can say, as somebody who had to campaign in both city and a lot of rural areas, you know, that's a lot of folks that it takes a little longer to get to them, and who really do want to know who their rep is. They don't want to feel overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, in the old district, I think I could drive across the district in 10 minutes probably.
Yeah.
Now it's probably 45, 50 minutes to the farthest part of the district. And my house is about 4 blocks from the edge of the district. So one of the things that I'm doing when I'm going to the new parts of the district is I'm literally just introducing myself, saying, I'm the person that represents you right now. I'm the person that's on your ballot, and I just want you to get to know me, so you can put a face with the name. And the way that I figure it is, our politics are so polarized right now. So many people don't know who represents them, especially in the state legislature. And we're all just something out there, whatever that something is. We're either really good or really bad. There's no in between. And so even if I am not earning their vote, my goal is to earn their respect so that they know me as a person. Because right now our mailboxes, our cell phones, our TVs are flooded with horrible, hateful mail and hit ads. And I want them to be able to look at those things and go, you know, I might not agree with her politics, but she's a good person. And hopefully we can claw back a little bit of the hateful rhetoric from something like that.
Well, yeah, because I mean, look, there's very logical, credible divisions that people can have on the issues. But then there's taking it to the point of, you know, name calling, or, you know, stealing yard signs, or, you know, some of just the worst behavior that some people feel emboldened to do. I don't know where they got that idea, you know, that it's okay to be, you know, crude and to have violent rhetoric. But here at the local level,
from the top of the ticket, that's for sure.
No, it couldn't be. But here at the local level, you know, you have a legislature where, again, you're basically coworkers. You have to see each other all the time. And again, you're not going to agree on things, but most legislators understand it's about getting something done for all of their constituents, not just, the ones that agree with them all the time.
Yep, absolutely. And just to clear the record, wasn't sleeping on the assembly floor. If anybody has seen those commercials or flyers.
No, I have not. No, really?
Oh, you haven't?
Really? You were sleeping on the assembly floor? Somebody's saying?
I'll send. Oh yeah, it's a whole ad campaign that they've done. And then I raked in $250,000. Yes, over 6 years, I was paid for the job that I was hired to do. So do the math: $250,000 over 6 years. Not exactly the top 1% in the state.
No.
But they literally took a screenshot of Wisconsin Eye as I'm looking at my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a woman in my 50s. My arms just can't get long enough. So you got to hold it at like really weird angles. And wasn't sleeping on the assembly floor, doing the work of the people, getting paid for it.
And yet somebody, okay, well, look, if they're going to do that, let's name names. Was it your opponent, or was it like the Republican Assembly Campaign Committee, or was it one of those shadowy PACs?
No, it was my opponent.
Your opponent, who, again, once held a position of trust and credibility in Eau Claire media. And frankly, we deserve a little bit better than that from our candidates. We'll talk more with State Representative Jodi Emerson on the other side of this break. Congressman Mark Pocan is coming up in about 15 minutes as well. Wherever you're listening across Wisconsin on this beautiful Tuesday morning, when you're here, you're up north, live from Lake Wissota on the Civic Media Radio Network. All right, and we are clear for a little 2-minute break here. No, I had not seen that.
Seen that ad?
No, unbelievable.
Yeah, go to her Facebook page and look at it. It's really bad.
Yeah, that's...
Bless her heart.
Bless her heart. Yeah, exactly. Oh, boy. All right, going to talk issues after this. Anything else that have glossed over?
Otherwise,
it's going to be a lot of the usual suspects.
I'll let my ads do the talking on the other stuff, but
okie dokie.
Did pull into a forum yesterday, see her car with Georgia license plates, so that's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of money out there and a lot of consultants, shall we say?
No, her car, like that's her personal car.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So spending a lot of time in Wisconsin.
Yeah. You got any events, appearances, rallies, VIPs that we need to know about?
Lieutenant Governor is coming into town tomorrow for a fundraiser for me and Christian Phelps.
Okay.
4:30 at Lazy Monk. So yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay. Sounds good.
And
yeah, that's actually the first thing I was going to talk about with Pocan is, about him joining you guys last week, you and Christian and Sarah Godlewski to
yeah, that was a fun night.
Well, see, you can have a little bit of fun with this.
Well, mainly because we went out afterwards too. So,
well, whatever it takes, So. All right, 15 seconds here. On this day in 1980, Talking Heads released their fourth album, Remain in Light, featuring the song Once in a Lifetime. Its video showing David Byrne's now infamous herky-jerky stage moves. It was among the videos played on the very first day of MTV and instantly became a fan favorite. We do our history lesson, the full history lesson, every morning at 6:50. Hey, if you are looking to see who is representing you or wanting to represent you in the Wisconsin legislature, we've got some sources you can check out. Dan Schaefer has put together a 2024 voter guide for civic media. Just head over to civicmedia.us to learn more. And for stories about things like how to register to vote, how to vote absentee, and more, you can check out the Up North News voting guide. Just head over to our homepage, upnorthnewswi.com. Or you can keep listening to fine radio programs like this, where we bring the candidates right to you, including Assembly Representative Jodi Emerson from Eau Claire. Jodi, the issues that tend to come up have fallen into basically two main categories. One that kind of comes under the freedom umbrella, like, bodily autonomy, things like that. And then affordability, whether it's the child care crisis or health care or things like that. I mean, is there kind of a mental ranking in your head in terms of what you're hearing from constituents this year?
I would say it's those top two. And surprisingly, it's not even like women are for the bodily autonomy, men are for the pocketbook issues. I've talked to some older men who have voted Republican all their life and said, I was a Republican until Trump made my wife not a full person. And then, beep, 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 I'm voting Democrat. So it's interesting. Just as soon as you think that you can put a person into a certain box by looking at, their car, their bumper stickers, their whatever, as you're walking up to their house, they surprise you every single time. So
no, I believe that the Dobbs decision, of course, played a big role in that. Donald Trump's mere existence, plays a role in that, where Kristen Lorey's been on here saying this is one of those campaigns where you talk to everybody. Usually the door lists when you're knocking on doors as a candidate, they're pretty regimented. These are where the undecided voters we think are, or the people that may be persuaded. But I think everything is just kind of a wild card this year, and almost everybody appreciates a good conversation. Obviously, with some rare exceptions, some people are going to be, the worst version of themselves, but I still think people enjoy a conversation more than anything else when they're seeing nothing else but TV ads and mailers and texts and everything else.
Yep, exactly. And the number of people as we're at the door who, I say, here's some information about me and some other candidates. And then they laugh and they say, I've got more than enough in my mailbox. You can keep that. It's fine. So
yeah. It is true. There's
true.
There's so much mail like ever before. In fact, let me reach down here because I'm going to make a collage one of these days. I've got Eric Hovde's face in so many places. On this one, on the flip side, there's a bigger Eric Hovde face. I mean, there's some folks that really think that I'm a swing voter when it comes to this U.S. Senate race, and you got to rethink your campaign budget. All right, in terms of the affordability issues, it's not like you and other Democrats in the legislature weren't trying to address some of these things. There were very concrete proposals made by you and the governor that you might want to remind folks about.
Yeah, so, we've worked towards child care. Counts was one program. We think about taking care of the most vulnerable people. You cannot go to work if you can't take care of the people who rely on you for their care, like maybe a 6-month-old child or something like that. But also, when it comes to childcare, you can't just keep on upping the tuition rates, because right now in Wisconsin, childcare costs are more expensive than college tuition is. So at some point, we have to help people with that, or they're just going to choose to have one person, go out of the workforce to take care of that child. You can't have somebody putting more than 50% of their budget into paying for their child to be safe. That's one proposal that we've tried. There's also a lot of stuff out there about how Democrats voted against the largest tax cut
Oh
in
yeah, let's
state
get into
history.
this one.
So
Yeah, you and the others voted against the largest tax cut in history. I'll bet there's a great big asterisk next to that.
yeah, so think about that. Like, if it's the biggest in state history, do you think it's sustainable? Do you think it's a election year ploy maybe after they knew the maps were going to change?
Maybe
We're
targeted to the highest income brackets,
right. And we're all for cutting taxes for people because we do have a surplus right now. However, I'm for making sure that our schools are properly funded so that each individual district doesn't have to go back to the public for operating referendum. Let's maybe adjust that a little bit. And then let's make sure that we're putting any sort of income tax out there in a responsible manner so that we don't have to raise their taxes the next year because the coffers are empty. So, I mean, I think anytime people are seeing a headline like that, they've got to look past and think critically and saying, what's the other side of this?
Yeah.
Because of course we want to get the money back to the people if we can do it in a reasonable and responsible way.
Right.
The other thing is we have had some successes when it comes to state legislature. I was the lead Democratic author on a transformational package of bills that was signed into law by the governor that puts more than $500 million into a revolving loan program for senior and workforce housing that is really going to help keep the price of housing down. And we know that that is one of the highest expenses right now, especially for working families.
Yeah.
Rents are going up like crazy. We just simply need more stock. We need more inventory. People need more places to live.
And tomorrow we're going to hear from U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. She was here campaigning on a personal basis for Vice President Harris and talked about that very issue of affordable housing. And for a presidential candidate to actually propose something as well tells you what the crisis is like and says that people like you have really hit the nail on the head in wanting to address that. State Representative Jodi Emerson from Eau Claire, thank you as always for getting up unnecessarily early for you, but we appreciate
Good
it.
afternoon show, Pat. I'm begging you.
I'm working on it. Congressman Mark Pocan is coming up next. You're Up North.
Hey, how you doing today? Hopefully you can hear me. The mic looked like it was working, but the camera wasn't. I'm not hearing anything.
Well, that would be it would help if I took myself off mute. There we go. How are you?
Good. How are you doing? Sorry about the camera thing. It said camera allowed access to Chrome. The one I opened, the first one it didn't, but oh well. Sorry.
All right, that's fine.
If Congressman, if you hit start camera, like just stop your camera at all from working, then we won't have. There's a image there. There we go. That way, at least it could just be Pat and we can hear you.
Oh, that's it. Okay, that works fine. All right. So we're going to get going in 2 minutes here. So you know the drill. I'm going to tuck you back in the waiting room. Going to start with your visit up here with Jodi and Christian and Sarah, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. See you in a bit. All right, again, it's birthday time for Bruno Mars. He's 39 years old today. Hey, this afternoon on the Maggie Dawn Show, Jeff Mandel from Law Forward will talk to Maggie about voting rights, how elections work to stay secure thanks to so many good local officials around the state, and what to expect now that around 400 lawsuits have already been filed by Trump surrogates and the campaign nationwide. Lawsuits being filed weeks before Election Day. So stay tuned to Maggie Dawn Show today, 2 to 4, for more about that. There's also a new video podcast series from the parent company of Up North News, Courier Newsroom. It's called Closing Strong. Tara McGowan and Simon Rosenberg are joined by Democratic strategists, elected officials, reporters, advocates, all about how much is at stake and why it is so important that progressives are closing strong. So look for the Closing Strong video podcast on YouTube. Just search for Courier HQ. Congressman Mark Pocan is with us now. And Congressman, good morning. Nice to have you here. Oh, hang on. I got to hit the right button there. You with me?
Yes, I am. Hey, Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, no worries. Nice to hear from you as well. Hey, let me start with we were just talking to State Representative Jodi Emerson, and if I'm not mistaken, you and the representative and Secretary of State Sarah Godlewski and Assembly candidate Christian Phelps were all in the Chippewa Valley together last week to talk a bit about Project 2025 from the Republicans and the potential impact on Wisconsin. So how did that go?
Yeah, and Jeff Smith also.
Jeff Smith. Good. Okay.
Yeah. So, Project 2025 is something that people really need to know about because there's so much that will affect they and their families' lives, from the extreme positions on reproductive freedom and literally monitoring the pregnancy of every woman in the country. They want the CDC to take a role in doing that. Talk about Big Brother, to going after the middle class by reducing overtime pay, by getting rid of the Affordable Care Act. And don't forget, that means pre-existing conditions. You can get health insurance if you have cancer, or if you have heart disease, or for that matter, if you're a woman, because they consider a pregnancy a pre-existing condition, to raising taxes on couples who make less than 120,000. That's all in Project 2025. The real attacks on Medicare and indirectly Social Security are really dangerous. And we just want people to know that, plus so much more for veterans, for students, for just about everyone is negatively affected, because this is a special interest dream. It's a dystopian view of what the country looks like. And Donald Trump and 140, by the way, 140 of his staff, former staff, cabinet secretaries, ambassadors, campaign staff have written this thing. So as Donald Trump tries to claim he has nothing to do with it, the reason he's saying that is because there's 4% approval, Pat, for Project 2025 and 57% disapproval, a net negative 53%. The more people get to know about it, the more they really don't like it. And that's the roadmap for Donald Trump and the Republicans should they win.
And look, it would be one thing if it were just, hey, we want to, trim the budget on some of these areas. But the acts that they would take to some of these things that seem so basic, like disaster relief, like the National Weather Service. I mean, there's nobody asking for that to happen. So you already come from a place of, we want to slash these things. But now, even in the here and now, as Hurricane Helene cleanup gets started in earnest and Hurricane Milton bears down on Florida, you still have colleagues like Derrick Van Orden and Ron Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, voting no recently to helping make sure FEMA has the resources they need.
Yeah, that's the worst part. In fact, and sometimes it's members who are in hurricane zones that are voting this way. And, this is what we do as a government. We collectively take care of each other. We might have tornadoes up in the Wisconsin area, like we had in my district years ago in Barneveld. You might have hurricanes down south. You could have flooding in other areas, but we do this as a country collectively together. And, Republicans just don't believe in it. And on the weather stuff, Pat, I'll tell you the most recent bizarre thing, and I always think you can't get more bizarre than the Republicans find ways to get to, but is that somehow the weather is being controlled and these hurricanes are being directed to Republican areas. Donald Trump himself this morning put out that. And Marjorie Taylor Greene did a few days ago, and I'm like, yeah, that's Marjorie, crazy Marjorie. But, this is crazy Donald Trump, the guy who, was trying to show hurricane paths with a marker when, he was misstated something when he was president. I don't know how much dumber we can take government than they are. At some point, we're going to have to take the movie Idiocracy and move it from comedy and put it into the documentary section. But, this is beyond embarrassing dealing with these guys.
Yeah. I mean, as somebody that has seen that movie plenty of times, it is just downright depressing. We're talking with Congressman Mark Pocan here on Up North News. And of the many things that frustrate us about what's happening in Washington, D.C., this next one is one that is admittedly far down on the list in terms of, national importance, but it really gets to the heart of whether members of Congress are acting on the up and up. And in this case, I'm referring to one of your colleagues, Brian Stile, who, if I'm not mistaken, continues to sit on security tapes that would show Derrick Van Orden's late night tirade in the Capitol Rotunda against Senate pages. Now, call me cynical, Congressman, if you want, but I have a feeling if that were a Democrat rather than Derrick Van Orden, those tapes would still be playing on a loop on Fox News.
Yeah, no question. I mean, first of all, Derrick Van Orden is obviously Wisconsin's most interesting member of Congress, a former insurrectionist turned a member of Congress gets in fights with Democratic colleagues, Republican colleagues, Department of Defense officials, the media, library interns, teenage pages. I've never seen a guy go Washington as quick as Derrick Van Orden. He thinks he's above other people because he's a member of Congress. And he had this drunken tirade after a beer bash party, which they have pictures of, a midnight tour of the Capitol, yelled at teen pages. And then, there's this footage that they won't release. And I saw the footage, Pat. I went and saw it, and they won't release it. And there's ways you could blur out the kids' faces clearly. I mean, especially with AI, you can do more than that. But there was no audio. The kids had the audio recorded where he swore at them and said, "I'm a member of Congress," and showed the arrogance of Derrick Van Orden. But what I saw was the bravado and the creepiness, maybe is the word. He claimed he did that with the kids because the Capitol used to be on the grounds of a Civil War hospital, and there were dead soldiers there. And it was disrespectful. And every single day, people lay on the floor and enjoy the rotunda, just like they do in Madison at the state capitol. But what happened is, after he yelled at the kids, and he kept yelling at them, he literally chased them out of the room with a swearing tirade. He gets back to his group, and he puts out his arms like a curtsy bow, and he bows to them like he was showing off. Like, the beer-filled, belligerent Derrick was just, kind of one more night on the town and showing off for people, rather than, what he actually claimed. And that's what they don't want people to see. Because,
let's just, it is just Congressman style hanging on to it, right?
House admin, and they originally told us they couldn't blur out the faces. I mean, have we ever not seen videos where there's blurred out faces, right? Like, that's completely a fake thing. But, it just shows here you have two Wisconsin members, one covering for the other. And I don't know what's worse, the person who perpetrated the arrogance in actions of yelling at teen pages and lying about it, or the person willing to help him cover up when Brian's an adult, he should know better. But if he doesn't act better, then it's not that different.
Well, but it gets us back to this whole notion of, Derrick Van Orden wanting to look like a tough guy. And, his latest TV ad has him surrounded by law enforcement officers, every one of them in sunglasses. And I don't know if that's because they're actually kind of embarrassed to be seen with Congressman Van Orden, or if it's kind of a tough guy thing. But it gets back to this notion of, all I'm really hearing about is the border, the border, the border. And I can't imagine that as Derrick Van Orden and other Republicans campaign on this, they're not reminded by so many people who know who it was that killed a bipartisan border deal.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump. There's a Senate bipartisan deal that would have added protections of the borders, added staff so that people who came here and claimed asylum would be turned around in 3 months, not 2 years and 9 months, which is the average right now, which you might not take a 6-month journey if you thought you were coming and being turned around in 3 months. So, like, all sorts of things that would have helped on the border. And Donald Trump said, no, I want it as an election issue. And they all rolled and allowed it. And now they're trying to act tough as if nothing is happening. But I think people are way smarter. And just one more quick thing, another Derrick story, just because unfortunately there's so many. He wants to be so tough, but the poor guy is afraid to melt in the rain. His motorcycle was outside the Capitol a week ago Monday. We had rain. And at the end of the day, when the rain broke, one of his staff or one of his interns was out there with paper towels wiping off his motorcycle.
Come on.
And we had video of it. So I put it out on my social media. This is beyond embarrassing. Like, we talk about a fake tough guy, a fake everything. This is a guy who is an insurrectionist turned member of Congress who doesn't support farmers. I mean, the classic, Pat, and this from being in the legislature, there was money that was taken away from the Dairy Innovation Fund to help dairy farmers take product to market. And he and Brian Stile actually did an amendment together. It looks like Brian's always trying to have his back. And it was restoring 40% of the 25 million. Why wouldn't you fight 100% for dairy farmers in Wisconsin? Instead, come back and say you have their back 40% of the time. And he still couldn't get it done because the Republicans can't get anything done. But that's just how sad, unfortunately, the Wisconsin delegation has gotten to.
Yeah, I'm not hearing calls, for example, to come back into session to help FEMA as this next hurricane comes, or anything that is in what I'd call the service area. Got time for something on kind of the more proactive side here. Because the outgoing chair of the Federal Trade Commission, is it Lena Khan, has been very outspoken about basically antitrust issues and price gouging and mergers and acquisitions, getting better oversight. And it really seems to dovetail with what we've seen from the Biden-Harris administration these past 4 years, is that finally somebody's looking at 40 years of Reaganism and saying, maybe we need, better oversight in order for capitalism to work. And I wanted to know your impressions of that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't know if I would say outgoing chair, right? Because
okay.
Yeah, she's the chair, and hopefully she'll be kept on by President Harris. Because
I see. Okay, good.
I think she's doing an amazing job. I mean, we have oversight, my subcommittee on appropriations for the FTC, and we've had her before us a number of times. And just this last time, she's the one who in May, they went after the oil company executive he was selling to Exxon, and they found hundreds of messages from this guy trying to conspire with OPEC, a foreign entity, about price fixing and supply fixing so that we would pay more for gas in the United States. And, the limited tools she had, she was able to at least make sure he didn't get on the Exxon board for 5 years and a couple other things. But, I would have preferred if the guy was in orange, not like Donald Trump orange, but like, orange, like in prison orange, for what they did to the American people. And what we were talking about recently, she came through Madison, was on groceries. Right now, a quarter of every dollar that goes to groceries by Americans goes to Walmart. And there's only 4 companies that control 65 to 70% of all the food. Well, there's a reason why we're still paying too much for food, is because you've got limited competition. And, recently Target and another company just completely brought the cost down on everything just out of the blue. It just shows that they're artificially keeping costs up. So whether it be what we're paying at the pumps for gas, what we're paying for food, these are all things that she's making the power of government work to not have monopolies, so that we can have more competition, which should be a free market concept, which supposedly what Republicans are for, but they're more for the few companies rather than all of them.
Yeah, I mean, for capitalism to work, the competition has to be fair, and there has to be a service mentality in government, which we'll hear from President Biden today later in Milwaukee. Congressman Mark Pocan, always good to catch up with you. Thank you so much for your time, and safe travels. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, Pat.
All right. When we come back, we will be talking to Chad Holmes to find out what he's talking about on the radio in the Wausau area next. You're up north.
Uptown, funk you up. Uptown, funk you up. I said uptown, funk you up.
Hello.
What a day. My camera's not working. Okay, I'm going to make a phoner slide in 60 seconds.
From this point on, I'm going to address all guests in the morning and tell them to please turn off their notifications.
Yeah.
As a final reminder.
Yeah.
Because
that was loud.
That third one.
Yep.
Scared me. Like, I jumped. I was like, "What's happening?"
Yep. I'm usually good about hitting it, but yeah, once maybe twice a month, I'll realize I didn't flip my speakers to my headphones, and I'll get a notification. I'll just be like, "Come on, be better than that." I'm liking this new content calendar where I can see guests ahead like Maggie's today. And there he is now. Again, tomorrow on the program, it's Wednesday, so that means we'll have our climate check with Melissa Baldoff, where we do some serious fact-checking on Donald Trump's complaints about a so-called EV mandate. And in our homeroom segment, you've heard of PTAs and PTOs. They're actually not one and the same. We'll talk about some of the differences, how they serve our schools, and how their work would be a little bit easier if we had a state legislature that held up its end of the deal in funding our schools. So that and much more tomorrow here on Up North News Radio. Chad Holmes follows this program on 98.9 WXCO up in Wausau, or listen through the Civic Media app. Mr. Holmes, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Pat. Doing very well, thank you.
Good. And wait, I have to make sure that I give you proper credit here by Tony. Mr. Wassum is here.
I don't know about that.
I'm still warming up to that one.
The compliment, Chad.
Yeah. Okay.
You're spicy, Mr. Wassum. I love it.
Spicy, Mr. Wassum.
Oh, dude, there's nothing. Honestly, I don't know if there's anything I'd rather have in my life than spicy Chad Holmes. When you get spicy, when you get upset, I'm just like, oh, all right, Dad is mad, and I'm just gonna not talk anymore.
I might have a spicy inroad here, but I don't know if I understand. Was there a Wausau City Council meeting last night that talked about the pilfered absentee drop box, the one taken by the mayor?
It's tonight.
Is it tonight? Okay.
There's a little, I don't know what to call it, protest, but a little get together beforehand. Again, it's there's another before the meeting tonight at 5:00 in front of City Hall. Some folks that are not thrilled with what is happening is a protest of the mayor before the city council meeting tonight.
Well, and in part, what I'm wondering is, I know the mayor, Doug Denny, has said that he wants the council to have input on where a ballot drop box should go. Now, for this election, that horse is out of the barn. So I can't imagine that somebody's bringing up like an actual proposal right now to move it, right? I mean, you would think it would be within his interest to just kind of let this thing go while he's, under investigation.
I don't know. And the thing about it, there's whether or not they're going to be able to talk about it tonight, it has to get onto the agenda. And I don't know if it's on the agenda or not. Again, I don't know what the mayor's really thinking here, because it really is, like you said, something that, number one, we are 4 weeks away from the election right now. The drop box is out there. We need to be focusing on making this election as safe and secure and as available to as many voters as possible. If he has a major issue with this, then you have time after the election. I just think that if you're going to continue to keep banging on this drum, it's really all about trying to make it an issue to stir up the folks that he's trying to cozy up to. That's the only thing I can.
That exactly. I mean, whereas if you were more public service driven, I'd like to see him film a video where he's standing next to that drop box and saying, hey, I personally would have this someplace else, or I would set up something different, but this is here. And what's important is that you vote, and however you vote, be sure you get out and vote. And I'd much rather have that from a sitting mayor than, again, trying to drum up conspiracies and, things like that.
And also, the Wausau City Hall is as secure as any place in this community, because over the last number of years, quite a bit of money has been spent to lift the security. Because in the last number of years, as you well know, there's been some rather, I guess you can use that term, spicy conversation, whether in Community for All or anything like that, that led to some threats with when former Mayor Rosenberg was in office, and some money was spent in order to further secure City Hall. And there are cameras, and I mean, if you want to have a drop box anywhere that's going to be secure, in front of City Hall is the place to be.
Yeah, Mr. Bach, you had some input on this.
I'm looking at the city council agenda right now. I don't see anything about the Dropbox. It might be during public comments, or
Yes,
some might people sneak it in, but I'd definitely be during public comments. But it doesn't seem to be anything official on the agenda at this point, unless it's not specifically noted as part of a.
No, I think it might be.
Which they couldn't get through now, anyways. This close to when it happened.
Right. And again, as I've said before, you could actually start the debate and something right now about the next election, but wouldn't it be better to wait till this one's done first?
Absolutely. And again, it's for a mayor that had run on the idea that perhaps the former mayor was getting involved in areas that she should not have, which was false, number one, that he got involved in this lane that is not his. This is about the city clerk. So again, and this is, he's not been in office that long. Right. He ran for this office earlier this year, was elected based on, well, the former mayor was getting involved in these areas that she should not have gotten involved in. Yeah. Well, this is an area that
meanwhile involved in. Yeah, here we go. Hey, before I let you go, I know you do all kinds of high school football, but and again, I'm not a big college football guy, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say to a guy that watches as much football as you do, Alabama losing to Vanderbilt in Nashville. How good did that feel?
That's fantastic, because again, there's all sorts of, and I'm not even talking about Alabama. I'm talking about Vanderbilt, because
I'm talking about Alabama.
I know you are. I heard you say it's one, and it's like a hand in glove for you. It's got to be, Vanderbilt fine, but it's got to be Alabama on that side. But I just thought that, for a school that there have been people that say, well, they shouldn't even be in the SEC. Well, they're the actual school that still has academic buildings around their football stadium. And actually, it's not and frankly, the SEC is a bunch of football programs with a few one-story
a football league with a college problem. Yeah, exactly.
And I actually saw a great line that said that college football basically is professional football with colleges sponsoring the teams. And that's what it comes down to.
So anyway, there's our little moment of joy in there. Thank you, Spicy Chad.
Yeah,
for more coming up in moments on 98.9 WXCO. Chad, we'll talk to you later. Greg Bach is back for Matt and Air on Air at 10 a.m. So tune into that from 10 till noon. And Todd Alba, noon to 2, where we might hear remarks from President Biden as he comes to visit Milwaukee today. Thanks for being with us on this Tuesday morning. I'm Pat Kreitlow. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning here up north.